What's good, family? So mash the like button and subscribe. So, for you man who don't know, Eddie Hearn has announced today that Anthony, the butt buster, Joshua, the booty buster, Joshua, and Tyson, Theory, have agreed to terms. Now, I wasn't gonna do a video, but I thought it was necessary because obviously all the YouTube shills are jumping all over this. But I will be honest, I'll be lying to you. If I said to you now that I'm 1,000% sure the fight's not going to happen, I'll be a liar. So there is a level of positive affirmations that come along with what Eddie Hearn's saying. But basically, Eddie Hearn's, how many times from Eddie Hearn have we heard? 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And he himself, give him credit, he himself said as much. Oh, I've told you, man, 2 weeks or a week for months now. So I'm not going to say much more. But end of the day, I'm on here. The YB speak pure truth. And the bottom line is on this one, it's good for nothing. This right here is for the press. This right here is for IFL TV to get a good headline. In reality, nothing's changed. And what really backed up me having to do this negative Nelly video was John Fury. John Fury gives me the heebie-jeebies, I'm telling you now, in as much as this fight not getting done. I just don't get a good feeling whatsoever. And for some reason, at every stage, it's never been just, it's done, it's signed, it's locked in, fully locked in. Do you know what I'm saying? There seems to be a big song and dance about everything, but actually getting it locked, about everything apart from actually getting it locked in. For example, the 28-day announcement. I've never heard of anything like it. Tell me another fight, yeah, where we heard about the 28 days. Now, I get it, this fight is big, but even so, McGregor versus Habib. Show me when you heard the 28-day announcement, and then the countdown. We had a countdown. The 28 days has now expired. And then we've heard from Eddie Hearn, oh, they've agreed and everything. Why isn't it signed then? Why do we need to know it's agreed? Now, it could just be Eddie being Eddie. You know what Eddie's like, he likes to get the press out there. That may be the case, and if I'm wrong, I'll come out and say I'm wrong, but I don't know. It just seems to me like it's never this clear cut, is it? But it could just be that, yes, we've agreed to a venue and whatnot. We're just nailing out the actual specifics, the actual details, which does make sense, in all fairness. Because we know Sunday Fury got the deal. So if Fury got a deal on Sunday, it's not a shock that it's going to take a little while to then agree to it and then get little bits and bobs sorted out. All I'm saying is, I don't like the fact that it's been so stagial, making the words up here. This whole AJ Theory thing has been stagial. Doing it in stages wouldn't be so bad as well, by the way, if we hadn't had all the negativity. Fish Eyes, Bob Arum, Theory, John Theory. I've never seen anything like it, and I've seen big fights before. I've never seen something so broken up. I've never heard of so many steps. Normally it's boom, the fight's on. Or boom, we're in negotiations. Normally you get 2 announcements. Negotiations is done. Not negotiations, it's signed. Oh no, but it's not really signed. Because you remember, 28 or a month ago, when we heard it was signed, most people, myself included, initially thought, oh, it's all locked in. We thought that was the announcement. And then we find out, oh, well, no, actually, this don't mean nothing. Top Rank come out and say, oh, well, actually, we have to agree on the venue and the details. I don't know. All this stuff, for me, gives me a bad feeling. It feels to me as if like Eddie is almost, I don't know what he's trying to do at this point. I ain't got a clue, truth be known. All I know is, just get it signed. Not to Eddie, I'm saying get it signed and then we can be clear. Until that happens, I ain't going to jump on the bandwagon here and start banging it. There's too many rolling factors here. And like I said, John Fury was the nail in the coffin for me. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if John Fury hadn't come out and said, nothing's changed. Oh, and by the way, I'd much prefer if my son had some warm-up fights. That's what he's basically said. John Fury said that John Fury said, AJ versus Fury deserves for both men to be at their best. Wouldn't you want to see both men at their best? I think that Tyson would be better with some warm-up fights. AJ fought Pulev. He's had a good 10 rounds. Fury hasn't fought for 18 months. I think he'd be better. So that kind of logic. And then but John Fury also saying that, oh, my son will listen to me. It's all kind of making sense now, isn't it? It's making sense why Fury wants to warm up. Oh, sorry. It makes making sense why Fury is so confident about the 2 fights. I'm fighting twice this year. It's making sense why John Fury's been so negative. And then in that interview also, he goes on to say, oh yeah, I love my son. I wouldn't want any harm to come with him. I'm always going to do what's best for him. And I knew that from the jump. I told you, man, the other day. There's a reason John Fury's been so negative. And I'm not knocking him as a father. But I've had pets before. I know what it's like. You don't want no harm to come with your pet. And having heard it all in one interview now, John Fury is just basically worried about his son's wig getting thrown off his cart. He's worried about AJ. He knows that, listen, there's a reason we didn't hear about John Fury talking about his emotions with Wilder. He knew what Wilder was. No good. Good for nothing. Even though John Fury will say things like, oh yeah, Wilder will beat the whole division, we know I'll go on. Because guess what? John Fury won't say nothing. He won't say nothing about, oh, we need to see both men at their best, was he? In fact, his son, John Fury was so confident about his son going in there with Wilder, he came off 2 bum fights and jumped straight in there, didn't he? No problem at all. Off a layoff. No warm-up fights, as in no mid-tier fights. Just straight in there, hop straight in with Wilder. No problem at all. Now all of a sudden, Fury's got the most momentum in his career, i.e. just beat Wilder. Apart from the time part, he's still, in terms of momentum, name me a better time for Fury's career. Because even after the Vlad fight, I'd argue Fury's performance against Wilder in a rematch, that's Fury's best performance and most momentum. That first Vlad fight, that weren't really momentum. It was alright, but he didn't run through Vlad, did he? Vlad was banging on the door to get his hands on him again. Whereas the Wilder performance, no matter what no one says, given how emphatic it was for Fury, given how much of a turnaround it was, he's got momentum right now. Fury's team have momentum right now. And even having said that, John Fury got all the excuses, oh well, we'd like some more time. My son will listen to me. Now, again, to try and be as balanced and as fair and as full disclosure as possible, John Fury did say that, well, if it happens by August, we can do it. But if it's going to be after August, then it's not happening. I'm going to tell my son not to do it because it's too long out the ring. So I don't know. It might be the case they've signed it and it's for August. But that does bring in an interesting question as well, because AJ's training situation. Listen, let's not get into that today. All I'm saying is, this announcement, just hang tight. Let's not get the balloons out yet. Because I've just got a bad feeling. Given all the information, I'm not emotional at all. I'd love to be on here and tell you, yeah man, it's all locked in. Everything's looking gravy. And I have to be honest, a week ago I told you, man, I was 99.9% sure it wasn't happening. That was when Fury was doing the countdown, all that goofy business. Now, I'm much closer to 50%. Probably over 50 to be fair. I'm probably 60% sure now. It will happen. But still there's that nagging. At this point, given that Eddie Hearn's come out and said, oh, we've agreed. I'm not there yet. Yeah? Eddie Hearn saying he's agreed would normally be a 99.999% chance of it happening. 100%. In fact, it'd probably be 100%. But in this situation, given the last 4 months, given it's taken us 4 months to get here, I'm not going to hold my breath. And to be honest, what does it matter anyway? Who gives a F? Oh, wow, YB's not holding his breath. And I'm sure things will go forward. And maybe because I'm not an insider, even though I've got inside HP sources, I'm not an insider. And maybe me and other people have underestimated how really difficult it is to get something done in C19. I haven't believed it myself. Do you know why? Everyone else been fighting. AJ himself fighting. Now people will say things like, oh well, YB, AJ versus Fury is a much bigger fight. Yeah, but it's all the same stuff, isn't it? You're sorting a fight out. No matter where it is, you're sorting a fight out. Look at Dubai. Look at UFC. UFC doing all their things, got McGregor on a $100 million yacht. They've made a whole island over there. Dana did that I'm not being funny here, but we're at the back end now. Everything's opening up. So if Dana was able to make a whole island in the thick of it, I don't want to hear about how you got problems. And again, not being funny, but Eddie Hearn's only got one big fight. Dana's doing a big fight every month. And I get it. Potentially, this has been stretched out a lot more as well by the fact that, guess what? Team Fury have done nothing. Bob Arum, Fish Eyes, done nothing to help. And that's another thing I find I scratch my head on. What do we know? The latest update from Team Fury's been Fish Eyes saying, oh, well, August, October and December. Just being negative again. It's for no reason. I can't understand that. I just don't get it. Eddie Hearn's telling us it's been agreed and it's all locked in. I spoke to Tyson Fury. Fish Eyes saying, oh, well, August, October, and they are giving all that. I just don't... Listen, again, that's why I'm saying I just don't know. The information's all goofy, loosey-goosey to me. Because we know Fish Eyes is broke. We know Bob Arum is broke. They're desperate for these big fights. I've never seen... For them, these two cats love some free money. So for them two to be so weird about things, I can't understand it. It's one thing, yeah, for John Fury or even Tyson Fury to be goofy because they've got to get in there. They're taking risk. But from Fish Eyes and Bob Arum's point of view, they've had no one or any of you man out there, give me one incentive, yeah, that Bob Arum and Fish Eyes have had to be negative throughout these 4 months. Just one. It doesn't make any sense. Any sense. We can say Fury's scared. We can say John Fury's scared of seeing his son get his wig pushed back. But for Fish Eyes, he don't care. He can win anyway. He about to win $10 million for doing nothing, essentially. Literally, because he hasn't even provided promotional services. They should have been, you'd have thought anyway, all things equal, without there being some Fury conspiracy behind closed doors not to put this fight on. That's the only thing that rationally makes sense for why Fish Eyes and Bob Arum have been negative. Give me another one. Why have they constantly made excuses and problems for? Even this is the thing as well. People say, well, YB, it's because it's C19 and, you know, they're saying the regulations are bad. Well, listen, they're not even in the thick of it, though, are they? They're not. That's the thing. They're not even doing the negotiation. They're not even... It's not like Fish Eyes was the one... or Bob Arum was the one negotiating with the venues. What do we know? Eddie Hearn said they haven't done anything. All the negotiations have been through Eddie Hearn. All the tendering of the fight, all the offering of the fight has been going through Eddie Hearn. So why, even though they've had no part in regulations, essentially, even though they've had no part in negotiating with the venues, why have they been moaning about the regulations and venues when they've had no part in it? They've just basically been putting their 2 pennies in. The way that Frank and Bob Arum have been acting, they're acting as if it's a typical Eddie Hearn event. That's the vibe I've got. You know what they're like. Any event Eddie Hearn does, it can never be good enough. Fish Eyes will hate. That's how he's acting. But what I'm struggling with is, this isn't a typical Eddie Hearn event. I.e., it's involving one of your fighters. Your biggest fighter for the biggest fight. They're acting as if it's completely... They're nothing to do with it. And in my mind, at least, the only reason someone acts like they're nothing to do with it is because they know they're nothing to do with it. Meaning, they got no intention of locking it off. But we have, in the last few days, we have received information to the contrary. So like I said, we go around in circles here, but I'm hoping this week. Eddie Hearn says another 2 weeks. And that's another thing, man. All this 2 weeks... What is that? I've never heard of something so long before. Never heard of it. You got McGregor fighting Dustin Prober. That was locked off in a few days. Even though they was arguing and whatnot. What is this? I don't get it at all. I can't understand it. Because the fight ain't that big. It really ain't that big. It's not like, I don't know, it's not like you're fighting on Mars. It's not like you're doing something that's never ever been done before. It's a boxing fight. There's been big ones all the time. Anyway, hopefully it's sooner rather than later. That's all I can say.